Extra Time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another edition of Extra Time. My name is Ronan Quirk. We're here until 8 o'clock this evening. We'd love to hear from you. Our text number is 083 311 3311. That also works for WhatsApp messages. And you can get us on Blue Sky. Extra Time at bsky.social if you want to talk to us there. 083 311 3311 texts and WhatsApps. Lots to come on tonight's show. Don't forget, we're looking for nominations for the Tip FM Sports Star of the Month for April. This is in association with the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel and Quirk Trophies Limited in Care. So if you see something that you think is worthy of a mention, then send an email to sportstar@tipfm.com. That's sportstar@tipfm.com. Excuse me. So we are going to cover a lot tonight because we've senior football to talk about. We'll talk to Anthony Shelley after Tipperary got a win over Waterford, the Munster Senior Championship quarter-final. Now play Cork in the Munster semi-final. And also the under-20s were playing in against Limerick over the weekend. They won 2. The minors, the under-17s, are currently playing in Castleconnell, I think, in County Clare at the moment. If we get any score update, we'll bring that to you. That game through in at 7 o'clock. We'll also preview the Munster Senior Hurling Championship, Tip Cork, next Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock. Whatever you're doing next Sunday, stop whatever you're doing and get either to Thurles or in front of a TV to watch Tip Cork. Repeat of the All-Ireland final. What an afternoon it's going to be. It's going to be one of the highlights, I think, of all our sporting years. When we start to reflect on that later in the year, hopefully we've a lot to talk about next Monday night. Well, one way or another, we'll have a lot to talk about next Monday night, hopefully in the affirmative. Anyway, Camogie with Geraldine Canaan as well. We'll have horse racing with David Burns and local soccer with Barry Ryan. But don't forget that text number again is 083 311 3311. It finished in Fairfield on Sunday afternoon, 15 points to 1-7. Tipperary coming out the right side of a clash against Waterford, which was much needed, I have to say. A shot in the arm, I think, for Tip football. Let's hear from Niall Fitzgerald. He spoke to Paul Carroll at the final whistle.
Coming to Fairfield, it's never ever been easy, so all we really cared about was getting the results, which we got. Elements of the performance were positive, some of it wasn't so positive, but look, I think it was reasonably efficient performance overall.
Half-time down by a point, but the breeze to come behind you in the second half. What were you kind of saying at half-time? Because often, the breeze never wins a game, as they say, but what was the kind of message at half-time?
Yeah, I suppose if you told me before the game that we'd be a point behind at half time after playing against that breeze, you'd be happy enough, but we weren't really happy with the performance. We felt we gave them a lot of turnovers in the first half, maybe trying to rush things. It was like there was a shot clock on at times, and we didn't need to be, just maybe we should have shown a little bit more patience. We were also disappointed with the tackle count. We thought especially playing against the wind, we felt we could have brought a little bit more intensity. So overall, performance wise, it was only okay, but I suppose overall we're happy to be in that position.
Yeah, because in the second half Waterford had it at 3 points, and there was kind of a lull period in that middle section of that second half. You made a triple substitution, and then there was a bit more energy, and Shawnee kicked a 2-pointer, and there was kind of no looking back from that point on. Yeah, but
Waterford had something to defend, I suppose, in the second half, and we knew that they were going to work hard, and in fairness to them, they gave us nothing easy, and even at times there when we were breaking, there was a lot of pulling back and stuff. So the credit to them, they made it very difficult for us to get a rhythm going. But look, we got the result again. That's all that matters, really.
Yeah, last couple for me. James Morris is someone we said his name an awful lot on commentary today, up and down the field at centre back. I'd imagine he's a manager's dream because he's so aggressive and he's willing to go up and down the field all day, but he's certainly kind of stepped up this year as a young man coming through for Tip.
Oh yeah, look, he had a serious league as well, he was excellent, so a real consistent performer, and we probably plays with a maturity beyond his years as well, so has become a real leader on the field, But there's a lot of them. I was like, a lot of young fellas there, There's Joe Higgins there in the middle of the field, and he straight out of under 20. I thought he gave a display of fielding there. Had a really good game. Probably unlucky not to catch a few more balls. So like there was a lot of good stuff. Charlie King, another young player. Thought he brought a lot of energy to it. Ran himself into the ground there. So, look, there was a lot of good stuff from the young fellas, and then we won't forget the old lads as well. Like Paddy Fiend there. Real warrior there around the middle, and worked very hard. So.
And on the injury front, you were without Stephen, Luke, and Jimmy's still out. Should you have any of those back for 2 weeks' time against Cork, do you think?
Yeah, we see Stephen and Luke, have a chance. Maybe we'll see. It might be coming maybe a week or two too soon for them, but we'll see.
And how do you approach that game against Cork now in 2 weeks' time? Munster semi-final against a Cork team that seem to be in flying form.
Yeah, look, they're Division 1 team now. They're moving really well, so it's going to be a tough task for us, So we're under no illusions. We'll approach it like any other game. We'll just try and concentrate on our performance and try to be as competitive as we can.
That's Niall Fitzgerald speaking to Paul Carroll after Tipperary's win in Farrerfield on Sunday. Anthony Shelley was on commentary detail for us. How are you, Anthony?
Hi, Ronan.
Your thoughts coming out as you got back into your car, put on your Pink Floyd, and drove back to Tipperary. What was your thoughts as you got out of Dungarvan?
It wasn't a classic by any means, but it was satisfying to come away with a win, because anytime you go to Dungarvan, Ronan, you're always a little bit nervous and apprehensive going down.
Correct. It's not a place I enjoy going to.
No. Look, fair enough. We've only been beaten twice down there since 1988, but there's been some right battles, and particularly with the week that went on underage, you were that little bit more apprehensive going in to say, "Geez, will Waterford make it 3 in a row over us in the space of 2 weeks?" But I think, as I said, it wasn't a classic, but it was an official. I think Niall mentioned it there. It was an official performance. In soccer terms, it was a good professional performance away from home. The win there makes it very, very difficult. We had a lot of the ball against the win, but you nearly had to work the ball into the 21. It was so strong, you had to work it into the 21 to try to get a shot off. So Waterford had dropped 12 men behind the ball, so it's meant a lot of over and back outside the big arc, and it's not pretty to watch. And it was probably even more difficult for Paul on commentary to try to make it somewhat interesting when there was actually nothing happening. But, I mean, you'd understand that it was a necessary evil, because the longer we held the ball, the longer Waterford didn't have it. And went in a point down at half-time. The second half was something similar. It was a little bit of a worry midway through the second half, where we went 3 points up, and there was a stalemate, and you were kind of saying, are we leaving them in the game, and we might get caught. But then, in fairness, Niall made the substitutions, freshened it up, and as Waterford had played a lot of the game without the ball, they began to tire. Shawnee O'Connor kicked the 2 points, and a 2-pointer in the blink of an eye, then suddenly we were 7 or 8 points up, and it was comfortable enough. Waterford got the last 2 points, I think, of the game to make it a 5-point victory. So yeah, overall I was satisfied. It was what you'd be hoping to get going down to Dungarvan, but as you know, we don't always get that. But yeah, I think I was happy, and it's Niall and I will be happy as well. There's aspects of the performance you could look at. We lost a lot of ball in contact. There was an awful lot of over-carrying, but I think that was down to an extremely fussy referee. But I think he was actually right on every occasion. He was pulling on the 5th step. It's just that we're not used to see it. Probably. And a few aspects, but that'd be nitpicking. I think it was, in general, a good performance without ever having to go into 5th gear or anything like that.
How important were the substitutions that were made in terms of just kind of freshening things up? And would Niall be disappointed that he had to make those changes in order to freshen things up? This is championship football. Fellas been slogging through the winter to get to play championship for Tip. Would have thought that they should have been hopping off the ground from the get-go.
I don't think they're coming off that because they were tired, or anybody came off because they played bad. I mean, Niall had a lot of experience on the bench. You're bringing on them likes of Mark Russell and Emmett Maloney and those and lads like that. So they have to get game time as well. and I just thought he met him at the right time. Freshen it up wasn't probably, we were always controlling the game, but that new energy that the boys brought in, because they were bursting at the seams, chomping at the bit to try maybe make a starting place the next time. So they brought a new energy to it, and I think we would have won it without them, but when they came on, it just made it that bit more comfortable for us.
Okay, fair enough. And Paul name-checked a couple of players, and James Morris was a young man who missed all of last year, I think, with an injury. Having him back is hugely important, and we forget how young he still is, and because of his contribution and his engine.
He's been immense this year, all through the year, all through the league. He's been outstanding, and he was again yesterday. He's so aggressive in the tackle. He's a real athlete that can carry the ball, from one end of the pitch to the other. He gave a kick pass to Dahi Hogan yesterday. It was a 40, 50-yard kick pass. And now Dahi took a shot, but James had continued his run, a lung-busting run. And, he was actually nearly on Dahi's shoulder for the return if Dahi had decided to go that way. Like, he just brings immense energy to the game, real leadership. And his ball skills have improved immensely over the last couple of years. Sometimes he used to be a little bit loose on the solo, but now he has it on a string. Just been absolutely outstanding for us, a real leader in the team, and he's only 20, maybe 22 years of age.
Bearing in mind we had lost to Waterford at both underage grades, how important was last Sunday's win, do you think?
Oh, I think it was huge. I can't remember the loss at under 20 and minor to Waterford. It was as poor a week as I can remember. Supporters and tip footballers, you were wondering where are we going from here. God will they make it 3 in a row, and it was just huge. It was just huge for tip football. It kind of. I was coming away yesterday. I wasn't thinking about the under 20 or the minor loss anymore. So a rising tide lifts all boats, doesn't it? And but that doesn't mean that we can ignore the minor and under 20 results either. I do think that we probably do need to sit down and have a real good look at it, and maybe even, I was saying to Paula, Paul on Friday night, maybe even do like Wexford did, bring in independent assessors to have a look at our underage structures and stuff like that. It's not broken. It's certainly not broken, and we shouldn't be panicking too much in the sense that, over at minor, over the last 3 years in Phase 1, we won 11 out of 12 games that we played. And our last 3 or 4 years, we won 11 out of 12. But this year, at minor and under 20, I should say, the results probably are a little bit of a reality check that we need to maybe sit down and do a root and branch and say, and maybe we're doing everything right, But Wexford, I referenced there, they brought in, Paul Kinnerk and Michael McGeehan to do a root and branch review of their underage structures, and we possibly should do something like that. Get somebody in the.
Wexford have gone up to Division 2, haven't they?
They have, yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty impressive.
That this year, so that's not the results of the review. They only did the review this year, but I know it's been done in other counties like Westmeath and Longford and Donegal as well. So just maybe, and the review might say, look, lads, you're doing everything right, don't be panicking. But I just think we need to sit down and have a look at it.
Okay, it's probably something for another day. What I think, you look at the Cork game, and it's a free swing from a Tipperary point of view. Will be long odds outsiders when that comes around. Cork are flying; they've been promoted to Division 1, but it's an opportunity for I think Niall Fitzgerald to get a better understanding of where he's at and where the team is at ahead of a tilt at the Tailteann.
Yeah, and put in, I don't think anybody would, in their wildest dreams, really, expecting Tip to win that. But if we could get a good performance and to bring into the Tailteann Cup, it would be huge. What you don't want is a demoralising defeat, and Cork are capable of doing that, but equally they are capable of being caught as well. So, if we do our research, they have some really good players there. That's Stephen Sherlock, I'm sure everybody in Campbell will remember him playing with Finbars this year. Outstanding players, some really good players there that we need to watch. It'll be a battle, but it'll be a good performance there, even in defeat. It would set us up nicely for the Tailteann Cup, which I think like we are on an upward trend. I think at senior level, and with the Tailteann Cup this year being the open draw in round 1, then winners v winners, losers v losers in round 2, it does give us a chance maybe of getting run in it, with a favourable draw.
Okay, and I think it's also worth bearing in mind that Stephen has to come back into that team. He thinks Luke Boland might be a week or two off it for the Cork game, but that would imply to me that both those players, their seasons are far from over, which is only good news for him. And Stephen, in fairness, has been blighted with injuries in recent years. He just never seems to be able to get a run of games together, but at the end of the day, he's a supremely talented footballer.
Oh, he is, and the poor chap can never catch a break. And I think it was in the warm-up against Waterford in the league that he did the calf muscle, and he's a slow healer, so it may come to the 25th of April, may come too soon for him. But by the sounds of an Ireland interview, hopefully the Tailteann Cup, I think the first round is the 9th to 10th of May that weekend. So hopefully he should be back by then, because he's a superb footballer. Just before the game yesterday, just before the national anthem, himself, Luke Boland, and Jimmy Fien walked across the pitch together, all in their tracksuits, and you were saying I'd be a lot more confident that the three of them are on the field. So by the time Tailteann Cup comes around, you'd be hoping that we will get the three of them on the field. Yeah,
just before I let you go, Anthony, those who know you well know you're a golf fan. I presume you were glued to the television till midnight last night.
Glued to it, yeah, glued to it more than last night, all weekend.
Yeah, I know. Just very briefly put in context for us where McIlroy sits in the pantheon of Irish sporting greats, because we know where he sits in terms of golfing greats. Back-to-back Masters, only the 4th player to do it. Career Grand Slam, I think only the 6th player to do it. Been the world's top 10 for God knows how many years. But if you were to rank him in terms of our Irish sporting greats, where would he rank?
He'd definitely be in my top 3 anyway.
And do you think the Irish public embrace him as one of the 3 greatest sportsmen we've ever produced?
I don't think so. There's a few people I know wouldn't even consider him Irish. So that's why he doesn't help himself at times with his interviews, even even the little quip, and it was a joke about the dinner. He wanted to enjoy it, so he had no Irish. Doesn't help himself, right? He doesn't embrace himself to the public. But I actually like him because he actually answers the questions when he's asked, rather than giving the bland answers that other sports guys do. But I think in what he has achieved, he's 6-time major winner. That's up there with Nick Faldo, and there's only one ahead of him, I think, as European golfers. So in his chosen
Seve,
sport,
I think,
yes.
Or maybe it's Eclipse Seve.
Seve only has 5.
Okay.
Seve only has 5. He's out past Seve.
Last question then: how important is Harry Diamond? And if you think about what happened on the 12th, would the back 9 in Augusta on a Sunday have been that back 9 we saw without Harry Diamond's contribution?
I don't know how much influence Harry Diamond has over Rory. I think Rory does his own thing anyway. Yeah, for years while he was going through the major drought, shall we say, I thought he probably needed a stronger caddy, but I don't know if I think Rory just does his own thing anyway, and Harry's just there to carry the bag and pull the clubs out of it.
Give him the artage and get on with it. It's always an education speaking to you, Mr. Shelley.
Okay.
Xander Schauffele didn't win as you thought he might, but
I wasn't expecting the questions on the Masters tonight or on.
There you are. You never know what you're going to get in extra time. Thanks for your time, Anthony.
No problem, Ronan.
That's it. Anthony Shelley, stepping in as a golf correspondent, but he's known better for his football knowledge, and reflecting on Tipperary's win over Waterford in the Munster Championship. They now play Cork in a couple of weeks' time in the Munster semi-final. Our text number is 083 311 3311. Back in a sec.
Extra time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
One texter reminds me that the Tip under-20s were involved in a game against Limerick at the weekend. That was a B final because Tip under-20s didn't progress into the latter stages of the Munster A Championship, so there was a match played where Tipperary played Limerick in that B final, and they did get that win, which was something that was really, really important. We have a lot to still come on Extra Time tonight because Geraldine Canaan will be with us soon. Don't forget that the ladies, the Camogie seniors will be playing Cork in the first round of of the Munster Championship, and that will be the opening fixture, if you like, of the events on Sunday in the stadium. So get in early. I think that throws in at 2 o'clock, and we will look forward to that. But ahead of Tip playing and taking on Cork at 4 o'clock. Horse racing, Dave Burns. We'll look back on the Grand Entry. That's still to come. We'll talk about local Banshee trader who had a treble win on Friday evening in Dundalk as well. And there's an awful lot of soccer as well with Barry Ryan. And incidentally, if you are looking forward to next weekend's fixtures in the TSDL, bear in mind that there is some of those games are going to be refixed in advance of the hurling that'll take place at 4 o'clock. So I think that common sense is prevailing, and there is going to be a rejig of fixtures, so bear that in mind and keep an eye on the website. David Burns is on the line. How are you, David?
I'm good, Ronan. How are you?
We'll come to Aintree in a second. Local Banshee trainer had a treble win. Enlighten me.
Yeah, he did. David Murnan on Friday
night.
night.
Oh, Dave Murnan. Sure, I was known well. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, a great man, and he's making great strides there with the MRC runners that he's got, and he's doing really, really well. And he had a brilliant treble on Friday night, and what was a wet and stormy all night in Dundalk on Friday. The first of the treble came with Jared Maddox winning the second, and he had two in the MRC colours in all sorts winning the second, and Gold Dream on a second start improved to win. So it was a really good night and a brilliant treble for David Murnan, and as I said, horses are running really well, and he's got some really nice types to go to war with as well on the flat for the coming season. So well done to him. A massive it's hard enough to get one winner, but when you can get a treble up on a night like that, and really good performance last Friday in Dundalk from David Murnan.
I'd love to ask him about preparing a horse for the all-weather up in Dundalk as opposed to sort of the other grounds around the other courses around the country. Do you think it's an appreciable difference, or is a horse going to run on all-weather the same?
Well, no, there's certainly a big difference, but what the all-weather does is it gives the trainers throughout the winter a great opportunity in running horses for the start of the flat season on the turf. So, you can get a lovely couple of runs into them, and, like we see Aidan O'Brien as well, producing plenty of good winners on the all-weather, and they go on to bigger and better things as well. So, to your question, it's a great opportunity to get horses ready for the flat season ahead, and look, it's popular by a lot of trainers throughout the winter, and keeping a lot of the horses going and getting some victories into them.
And it's coming to Tip, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and when you pass by at Limerick Junction Racecourse now, it's fabulous to see the work that's being carried out, and I can only imagine what the final article is going to look like, but it's going to be brilliant to have an all-weather track at Limerick Junction, because so much, with the train station, the hotel and the local area, and so being so close as well to Clonmel and to Limerick, hopefully it's going to be a massive success, and I'll be looking forward. It'll be a massive boost as well for so many of the trainers like David Murnan and so many more local trainers that, making the journey to Dundalk is certainly a long, long way away from home. But with this on their doorstep, it's certainly going to be a big, big plus. And it looks, as I said, the work that they've carried out so far looks really great, and making great strides every time.
I look forward to seeing it. Should be a great, because you can guarantee, through the winter, exactly what the ground's going to be like. David, we've spoken before about Paul Townend on this show, and I don't know, a bit like Rory in the conversation I had a few minutes ago, I'm not so sure that sometimes we appreciate the greatness that Paul Townend is producing on a weekly basis, almost daily, 3 times a week basis. When he crossed the Melling Road, how many horses were in front of him with 6 furlongs to go? The confidence he must have had, to know what was ahead, what was still left in the horse, what pace he was going at, to calculate, make adjustments, and know that he still had the horse in the best position despite the large number of horses ahead of him with 6 furlongs to go. I thought it was an extraordinary riding performance.
It was, and I suppose, you got to see the two sides of how jockeys think in a race like that on Saturday. And you take Paul Townend, you've mentioned him and his brilliance on I Am Maximus. And then when you look at Ben Jones and the way, I think, as someone said, he probably got a rush of blood to the head, like kicking on so far out on Jordan's. And you'd wonder if would we have had a different result in the race if he had held on to Jordan's a little bit longer and nursed him into the race and kicked a little bit later. Look, who knows? But going back to Paul Townend, that was tremendous. He's doing this day in and day out. He's one of the best national hunt jockeys that there is either side of the Irish Sea, and he's just a marvellous judge of pace and the way he can just nurse horses into the race. He gave I Am Maximus an absolutely brilliant ride to win the Grand National, and it was a superb performance. And of course, he's won the race now twice, I Am Maximus 2024 and in 2026. And, already the vibes are, fingers crossed, he'll get back to have a go and try and equaling Red Rum's effort of winning the National 3 times. But Paul Townend was brilliant on the horse on Saturday on I Am Maximus. And, look, it was a 1-2-4 for JP McManus in the race, and that was some achievement as well. But it was a really, really top-class ride. You could not fault that ride by Paul Townend. And Willie Mullins, again, training at the highest there is, the highest level there is, and he's setting a standard beyond bounds for everyone else. Look, Gordon Elliott leads the race in the Trainers' Championship in Ireland at the moment, but even I think Gordon Elliott knows with Punchestown just around the corner, we know the fire and ammunition that Willie keeps for the Punchestown Festival, and it would be hard to stop him from not being crowned champion trainer once again.
Explain something to me, David. When you and I were younger, the favourite for the Grand National didn't go out at 9-2. 40 riders in a handicap. How come it has become somewhat predictable?
I think there's maybe, I wouldn't say it's become predictable. I think what's happened is that the better horses are, the better quality horses are winning the race. There's a lot of things that have changed maybe since the time when we were looking at the National over the years. One I think is that, I'm not saying that the course is easy in any way, but the fences are much more they're much more easier for the horses to jump.
They're less attritional, aren't they?
Yeah,
from
I
a
think
say,
so.
yeah.
Like they're more forgivable is the word I think you're looking for, because horses can hit a fence now and they can still survive. Before in the National a number of years ago, when you'd hit a fence, you were gone. There was no survival. The field has gone back from 40 to 34 runners. And they seem to be, spread out a little bit more as well in the National. And the better quality horse just is winning the National. We've seen it time and time again. We've seen it all in the last 10 years, the likes of Tiger Roll, I Am Maximus. We've just seen the better quality horse come out on top in the Grand National. And I just think that it comes down to the quality of horses. Maybe that the better horses nowadays are, running in the National, maybe that hadn't done before. And that's why when you see a 9-2 favourite and a well-backed 9-2 favourite as well, it has to be said in I Am Maximus, like the late gamble that came for him, the confidence behind him was absolutely, there really was no other horse they wanted in the race, only I Am Maximus before the off. And look, he duly obliged, but he's got the brilliant ride, as you mentioned, by Paul Townend, and the brilliant training performance by Willie.
And lastly, Punchestown. Obviously, brings the curtain down on the National Hunt season. Again, Willie Mullins comes fully loaded for it. Henry de Bromhead, they'll all be there. It doesn't get the same oxygen that Cheltenham does, but it doesn't lack for quality.
No, it doesn't. But I think the same can be said for Aintree, in my opinion, as well, though, because I think once you hit Cheltenham, the build up to Cheltenham is you climb to the top of the mountain, and everything from Cheltenham after the Gold Cup on the Friday of Cheltenham, I think it just beginning to come back down a little slowly to the final National Hunt meeting of the year at Punchestown. But nonetheless, like, you're going to see so many of the stars. Willie has kept quite a few. I'm sure the likes of many of the winners we saw at Cheltenham. He's going to be keeping many of those for Punchestown, as I said, to win that trainer's title, and that's really what it's all about. And we're looking forward to it. All gets underway, of course, on Tuesday, the 28th of April, and runs right through until the Saturday. And it's a brilliant final, a brilliant way to bring the curtain down in the National Hunt season, Punchestown, because gives I think patrons and everyone a great opportunity to go and see some of the best horses that we've seen all year. And once Punchestown is over, we're back dreaming again for the start of the real National Hunt season come October time again. So
once Punchestown is over, the 2,000 guineas is on a new market, and then we're straight back into it again. So it just shows you.
Again, it's incredible. And you're talking about the Craven meeting midweek here and Newmarket starting tomorrow as well. So we're really now really becoming after Punchestown. We'll be really flat focused and looking forward to another cracking campaign on the flat as well. So it comes around nice and quickly, and we won't be long. As I said, we'll have the flat underway on as it's underway already, but we'll be right into the heart of it, as you said, with the Guineas and building up to the Derby. Time is just flying by, Ronan.
Listen, the Munster Championship starts next Sunday. We can't keep up. Got to fly, David. Thanks for your time.
We're looking forward to that one.
You better believe it. Good luck and thanks. Slán.
Good looking, thanks.
Thanks, David Burns with his reflections on the entry. Geraldine Canaan, how are you?
How are you doing, Ronan?
Very well. We'll come to next Sunday in a minute, but the minors, we were hopeful as they went up to take on Galway in the Camogie semi-final. Didn't quite work out what the way we wanted, even though Tip had a half-time lead of 1-8 to 1-7.
Yeah, look, they had a fantastic first half. I suppose conditions were tough. We did have the advantage of the wind in the first half, but they put in a great display of Camogie in the first half. Went in a point up. Galway came out straight away after the restart and levelled things up. Tip got a score then, but then Galway just found a new gear. And with the wind advantage, I think they hit 1-9 or 1-10 in a row. I suppose, and put the game beyond doubt. But in fairness, Tip battled back then, had a great last 10 minutes. I think they scored 2-2 in the last 10 minutes alone. So look, they battled right to the end. It was probably still maybe one of the best hours of Camogie we've had. But I suppose against a very strong wind in the second half, just Galway got on a run and did enough. But look, a disappointing end to the minor championship. But I suppose they gave it their best, and they had some good results throughout the year. And I suppose it's disappointing falling at the semi-final stage. But look, that's an excellent Galway team, and they meet a very strong Kilkenny team now in the final as well.
Okay, so that's the Camogie, the minor Camogie campaign come to an end, but the senior campaign really starts next Sunday at 2:00.
Yeah, so Munster quarter final next Sunday 2:00 before the Tip and Cork hurling game. So an absolutely super Sunday of Camogie and hurling coming up. It really, I suppose, we'll really know a lot about Tipperary after this. So they're gone out of the league a good while now. Have had loads of time to prepare for this, and things have been quite enough in the camp. And I suppose you'd be just hoping that training has been going well. They have a lot of girls back, I suppose, from injury that didn't feature in the league. I mean, we didn't see Clodagh Cork, Kareen Blair, Casey Hennessy. We saw very little Emer Heffernan in the league, all kept coming back from injury. So look, word is that he's a full bill of health, for the panel to pick for on Sunday. So we should be at our strongest really on Sunday against Cork. I suppose Cork didn't set the place on fire in the league either. Had a very surprising loss to Antrim. And I suppose if there's ever a chance to beat Cork, I think this is it. They have lost a good few players from the team that got to the All-Ireland final last year. The girls gone playing Aussie rules, a few retirements. Now some of the players have come back that weren't there and started the league as well. So look, it's a massive game for both teams. Quarter-final spot winner will play Limerick in a semi-final. So fantastic opportunity to get to a Munster final. A couple of weeks of really good competitive championship hurling before you head into the All-Ireland series. And I think it's the tip, whatever about the league, they definitely want to progress and stay in the championship and, get as money in the Munster championship and get as many games out of as they can. And obviously there's the prize of a Munster title as well at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important we make home advantage count. I mean, it's going to be a tight enough game, and there's small swings and small margins in a lot of these things, and we are in Thurles. It is our patch. Got to make it loud, because Cork will be bringing a lot of people to the hurling afterwards. So we certainly don't want to be shouted down in our own patch.
Exactly, and I suppose that's the call out from the Camogie and from Tip GA is to get everyone to come in early. I mean, it's going to be a massive crowd. Get in early, get in time for the Camogie, and let's cheer on the girls as well, and hope it's a brilliant day out for both teams. But look, it definitely, as you said, it's going to be a tight game, and that Tip crowd behind you, that roar, I suppose. It was very evident last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final against Kilkenny when the Tip crowd, I suppose, outshouted the Kilkenny crowd, to win that game in extra time. So you can't underestimate the power of a big support and getting behind the girls, especially down the home straight. So we would obviously urge everyone to get in early for that game.
Were the under-23s out this weekend?
Yeah, so Friday evening, the under-23s played Kilkenny down in Kilkenny. I suppose dreadful conditions for Camogie, and huge credit to both teams. They served up a great game in very tough conditions. Tip led at half-time by a point. Kilkenny came right back into it in the second half. They had the wind advantage in the second half. A low-scoring game, but a massive battle. We had chances to win it, but in the end, we needed a Daniel Ryan free in injury time to level it up and take the draw. And I think both teams would be relatively happy with the draw. It was a game certainly neither team wanted to lose because, as I said, it was a massive war of attrition in wind and rain. If you remember Friday evening, terrible conditions. So, look, huge credit to the girls. I think they couldn't have done any more, and I think they'd be happy enough with a draw away to Kilkenny. And they're out this weekend as well. They're out Sunday morning. Well, it's down for Sunday, but we're hoping the time will be changed to the morning, not to clash with the seniors.
You can't do that.
Playing Galway in the home grounds in the Rag, so we've that to look forward to as well. And the under-16s are in an All-Ireland semi-final this weekend as well, so we're just waiting for confirmation of all those fixtures, and it's going to be another massive weekend, I suppose, for Tipperary Camogie with 3 different teams out. Yeah,
listen, who'd be a PRO when all the games are coming this thick and fast? Thanks indeed for your time, Ger.
Thanks a million.
Take care. Good luck. Thanks. Ger Canan, we'll have lots to talk about next weekend with that under-16 All-Ireland semi-final, the under-23s in action, and of course the seniors starting their Munster campaign against Cork. Speaking of Cork, Tom McGrath's online. How are you, Tom?
Good, Roland, thanks.
You're excited, I would say, already about next Sunday, but let's just look at it calmly and coldly. The media are going to tell everyone it's a repeat of the All-Ireland final, and I suppose that narrative will take its own course, but perhaps we need to just focus on the fact that this is the opening round of the Munster Championship, a dog-eat-dog Munster Championship, and the only show in town is getting out of Munster.
Yeah, true. And I suppose the big thing for Sunday is a certain amount of calmness. The hype wagon has kicked into gear, I'd say, for a while back. Maybe more so in Leeside than around the Premier County. But a bit of calmness. And look, I think the key bit from Tipperary point of view is what we achieved. What the lads achieved 20th of July last year can't be taken away from, no matter what. You can come up with this happened Cork, that happened Cork, and the other thing was there was 50 and 20 players, whatever it was, that went out in the field in Croke Park that Sunday to win a match, play a match. Tipperary won that match. Circumstances irrelevant. The better team won the day, and this year is a whole different year. And I think we have a bit of a block to build on. But while our league form mightn't have been terrific in spots, I think there was enough in it to have plenty of grounds for optimism next week. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, so, Cork have had the extra week or the extra game, the league final against Limerick. We've had a month, really, and I would imagine a pretty intense month with a lot of focus on April 19th.
Yeah, but then, you see, you wonder what value that match was to Cork. What did they learn from it, or what other seeds of doubts were sown in their already fragile minds? If that's the way we kind of want to look at it, I'm not sure what to take from that league final. Cork's setup was a bit peculiar. I think they'll bring a different thing to it on Sunday. But there seems to be this so-called lack of intensity with teams in certain matches. Essentially, what they're saying indirectly is, we weren't really trying. We didn't want to show our hand and all that type of stuff. But I think that's absolute rubbish. I think that sort of nothing breeds confidence on his success. Win your matches. Now, the odd match, you can sometimes learn more from a loss than you do from a win. But I don't think Cork learned that extra match wasn't any value to Cork. From where I'm looking at from anyway, they may as well have been at back train, I think, because they'd have been 30, 35 lads trained then instead of 15 fellas maybe going through the motions to a certain extent in Limerick. But then, are Limerick a different animal this year? There's a whole lot of, for every positive, there's a counter argument somewhere else. So, look, it's 70 minutes of a fair bit of attrition. I'd say it's April. We're a long ways. We're in between seasons, if you like, and it's a different type of game. Depends on weather between now and then as well. But you won't have a mad fast surface or anything like that. And I think to be batting the hatches and make sure. I think from a Tip point of view, performance I think is the key bit from a Tipperary point of view, because it's a measure of where you are then, and you use that then as a block to build from there.
But to quote your good self, as you've often said, win your first game. You know, if this was the county championship draw we were discussing, which we never really got to because it's kind of got lost in the ether and the fog of all the stuff we have to discuss, and we'll come back to it in due course. But you do stress, and you're always right, Tom, that you got to win your first game, and I could apply that logic to the Munster Senior Hurling Championship.
Yeah, I think so. That's fact. But the reality probably is that we're probably at the moment in most people's eyes, nothing really share fully, but Limerick, Cork seem to be the front two, and the other three then are pretty much fighting for the third spot. But if Tipperary are not to win, on Sunday, well, I think performance will be important, because six days later we have no matter what happens on Sunday, we're going to have to go to Waterford and get something out of Walsh Park on Sunday week. So I think performance number one next Sunday is fierce important, that you get a foothold on things, and let the result then take care of itself after that. Because I think if we get the performance and the intensity that we're capable of, and that we have a full hand to deal from, now, in other words, that we have 20 of our top 22 or our first choice 22, I think that would be important, and that you'd go at it and give it everything, because that's you quoted me correctly, but there's first rounds and there's first rounds, so I'll go for performance first on Sunday and then see where the result takes us after that.
We could be without Willie Connor's time. We'll get the team obviously next Friday, so I don't want to preempt it, but there might be a couple of personnel changes from the team that took took the pitch on in July of last year, which is understandable.
But not many. The opinion was there towards the end of the league is that
we were coming back to we're reverting back to the team from last year.
Well, you'd have 13, possibly 14, but then injuries played their own part in that as well. So I mean, Willie was a huge player in the All Ireland final. He'd be and he's the kind of guy who would get in lads' faces.
He gets into the trenches with you. He's the kind of player.
But his skill levels then are off the range as well. So I mean, he's the guy that should bring in with you, and sort of if we're not to have him, he's a loss definitely. But that's what you have your panel for then, is to use that panel. That's what I was saying. If we have 20 of our 22, but you kind of limit your losses. That's important. But it's somebody else's chance then to step in and stake a claim for a position, and that's competition is what the thing is about too, and that brings its own level of performance. One
thing, and I don't know if I've analysed this incorrectly, but I do. If you compare Cork at this stage last year and this stage this year, last year they just seemed to be goal hungry and determined that goals were going to win games. There seems to be a bit more of a rebalance about them this year, that goals don't seem to be the be all and end all that they seem to have been for them under Pat Ryan last year.
Possibly, yeah. The sort of theory would be, and it's easier to score 3 points from 50 metres than try and be going through for a goal. But then they went for a few. I think backs have wised up a little bit to them as well. These tall, gangly lads marauding through the middle, meet them on the third or fourth step rather than meet them on the first step, that you kind of force them into an overcarry or a hurried pass or something like that. It's where the terms of engagement is the key bit like that. And I think defence coaches have got into the thing of, it's where you engage a fella. Let him take his few steps, back off that small bit, and let the fella commit to his steps. And it makes a decision for the referee an awful lot easier. A fella has 4 steps taken and goes into the engagement then. Well, 5, 6, and sure, Barrett lad doesn't have the count at all. He's going to blow on the 7th one anyway. That is a defence. It is cuteness, and it's not all about putting the fella back on his backside coming through the middle. You kind of you set your scene, because you can't do that anymore. It's a free, it's a card, it's a straightforward point, and you're back to a restart then. So you force they call it the turnover. But you're force them to concede a free. Well, that's the same as the turnover. You don't have to take the ball off the guy. You can force him into the error, the overcarry or something like that. Yeah.
From a tip point of view, is there enough firepower in the team thus far? Or, because I'm talking about Cork and goals, it was goals that got us the All Ireland this year, as we both remember with joy and glee. But are you happy with the firepower up front?
Well, sure. I'll tell you that next Monday night.
That's fair enough.
Again, but the games are different. They take on a life of their own.
Yeah, I think that's important. If everyone's looking for a carbon copy of last July, then you've come to the wrong place.
Yeah, but you see, you can coach this and coach that and coach the other. But like, sure, three of our goals came kind of. One of them was probably a shot for a pint that dropped a little bit short. The goalie made a hames of it, and then you had a lad there to avail of it. The second one was possibly a shot for a pint that dropped short, and the forward had the presence of mind to follow up on a semi-lost cause. And then the third one was a route one ball put in that was turned into a penalty. So, it's not something that would have been worked off this famous board that lads have with the coaching with different, what was the table football stuff we used to play years ago? Like it's not
Sabutio.
Like that. Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that your view on whiteboards and sidelines wouldn't be a positive one. But anyway, look.
But there is room for certain amounts, Ron. Just don't go around. There's room for certain amounts, but go back to the other way. The tried and trusted works not all the time, but a mix and match is good, I think.
Just to before I let you go, half-time in the Munster Minor Football Championship, it's Clare 1-6, Tipperary a point. Anyway, I know, yeah, that was my reaction. Tom, I'll let you go.
Quilty not an easy place to go.
It was changed actually. Quilty was unplayable. I think that moved to Castleconnell. But it's definitely not in Quilty anyway. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that'll give you a chance. But
anyway, I'd say there's a wind. Let's just assume
that was on the back foot, I suppose, before they went down. Expecting a 10-point win was expected a bit much. But no, look, Seniors got a win yesterday. That was important too. And again, to see my two stand up guys, O'Connor and Smith doing the business is great. There's 13 other fellas playing as well. But no, I think it was a win that was needed, and fair juice to lads. They got the win, and sure, Cork will be a different kettle of fish the next day. But
at least we're there. Yeah, that's true. Tom, lot to look forward to. We talk next Monday.
Yeah. Okay, Ronan.
Sloan, thanks indeed. Tom McGrath with his views on next Sunday afternoon. Back in a sec.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel. Multi-award winning wedding specialists with state-of-the-art leisure facilities and spa with food served daily.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month.
Get your nominations in now.
Yeah, don't forget our text numbers 083 311 3311. Barry Ryan, how are you?
How are you, Ronan?
Oh, lots to talk about. The FAI Junior Cup round 3. So this is the round, the final local round, if you like. So you go into a national draw after this. As they say, you get out of your area in football parlance. I would say Castletown will regret not being able to overcome BT Harps, but fair play to BT Harps winning on penalties.
Yeah, I suppose, look, BT Harps were at home in the tie, and they're in contention to win the league in North Tip. And obviously Cashel have done well to secure Premier League status. So I think BT probably would have come in as favourites. And look, Cashel very nearly pulled off a result, came from 1-0 down, 1-1 draw, went extra time, went to penalties, and just came up short in a penalty shootout. So I think they would have loved to prolong their season with a trip up the country in the open draw. But BT Harps come out on top. Yeah,
so 1-1 in that one. And Ballymackey gave Clonmel Celtic a right scare. But maybe when I say that, am I being unfair to North Tip football when I'm saying that Ballymackey gave Clonmel Celtic a scare? Or should I just compliment Clonmel Celtic for going up to Ballymackey, a very competent, capable side in North Tip, and getting a win in the FAI Junior Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Ballymackey were, I think they've only, I don't know how much, they haven't lost too many home games this season anyway. And Celtic have obviously, struggled a little bit in the TSDL this season, not the force that they were. So I think Clonmel Celtic would have looked at that as a huge banana skin. And to go up there and come out on the right side of a 5-3, Kyle Cuddy among the goals, I think Celtic would look at that as a really good job, well done. And look, Celtic have a little bit of pedigree in this competition as well. Yeah. Went all the way to the quarter-finals, only 18 months ago. So, I suppose Celtic will, on reputation and name and tradition would have been huge favourites, but maybe just on the seasons that both sides are having, Ballymackey would have saw it as a big opportunity. But the FAI Junior Cup, a pedigree counts for an awful lot. That's the reason the Fairview Rangers and the Cherry Orchards and the St. Michael's and these teams have won so many times now. It is a competition where pedigree goes a long way. Yeah, so you get out of your area, and then you're in a national draw. You could be going up to the Inishowen Peninsula and Donegal to face Carndonna or something, which not only puts a pretty much of a strain on a club's finances, but they're obviously difficult away trips. But if the draw is kind,
you can suddenly find yourself in the business end of it and the league not really bothering you, and all your eggs come into a very deep focus on the FAI Junior Cup.
Yeah, look, it's a brilliant competition, the biggest knockout competition of its kind in Europe. But home draw is everything. You always talk to the managers and they always say the same thing. I don't really mind who we get once we get it at home. But you could also end up navigating your way. There is a lot of teams come into the last 64, maybe from not the strongest leagues and stuff like that. And you get somebody having to travel down from Louth or Sligo or wherever the case may be. And you could find your way very quickly into the last 16. And we've seen that in the last number of years. And North End, last year's finalists, were beaten at the weekend as well by Evergreen and Kilkenny. So all of a sudden, that's a big scalp as well.
Yeah, we'll move on to Peakville against Clonmeltown. It'll come as no surprise to regular listeners to this show that Peakville has secured a 4-0 win over Town.
Yeah, look, I think Town are probably in that point where they just would like this season to come to an end now. That one, as soon as the draw came out and they were drawn away to Peakville. Peakville had harbour aspirations of going a long, long way in this competition. So I think there was only ever going to be one winner in that contest. Couple of goals for Kieran Hennessy and Keith Cahill along the way. And look, Peakville will move on nicely with big games against St. Michael's in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and Cullen Latin entertained St. Michael's, but St. Michael's, the Premier Cup team in the area, with a 5-1 win.
Yeah, look, again, another facile victory as well, and St. Michael's will be pleased with that. Jimmy Carr amongst the goals, and they'll move on now. I think we come in this weekend into this new Tipperary Shield competition. I know St. Michael's play Burrs, and I think a lot of teams will probably rotate a lot in that competition and see it as an opportunity to give people games. I'm just not so sure about the merits of this Premier Shield.
Well, I was going to put that to you, because if you count the number of games players have in the course of a season, it's huge. Like, it can be 20-30 games. Yeah. If you have a bit of a cup run in either your own Tipperary Cup, the Munster Junior or the FAI Junior, you play 30 matches. And I don't know, I particularly for I think I do understand the importance of the Shields in the lower divisions who aren't going on deep cup runs, but I don't see it for the Premier.
No, like there's teams in the Premier, and I say this with the ultimate respect to them, whether it's Clonmel Celtic, Care, Cullen Latin, where they don't get maybe a long run in the FAI. Now, with all due respect, fair play to Clonmel Celtic, they are still in the FAI, but they would really appreciate maybe a chance to win a Shield and an extra couple of games and put a bit of gloss on the end of the season. But this is just a headache for Peakville at Michaels. In terms of I would bet when I'm talking to you next Monday, Jimmy Carr, for example, doesn't play at the weekend in this Shields competition.
But also, if you look at what the French League do for Paris Saint-Germain, now I know listeners are going to go, he's comparing La Ligue or Ligue 1 to the TSDL, but what they do is that they rearrange fixtures to facilitate the European competition that Paris Saint-Germain have. Maybe, and you just need to be conscious of the load, particularly for the teams who've gone out of the area, the load that they have, the 3 TSDL teams and the 1 TNDL team, that has to be managed, because they could go deep in that competition. Yeah,
and Ronan, even to take your point, the Shield draw was only done after teams had got with late into the FAI, so they could have just looked at the teams that are gone out of the FAI Junior Cup and just put them into the Shield.
Bit like the League Cup in England, if you're in Europe, you get a couple of buys in the first opening rounds.
Yeah, you don't play in the first couple of rounds, exactly. Yeah. Like this competition, two Burrs were knocked out of the FAI Junior Cup. The Shield might have been something that they might say, look, this is a chance to get a little bit of silverware. So you could wait until the area. Like now we'd have Cullen going out, but this weekend we'd have Clonmeltown. And all of a sudden, Clonmeltown, Burrs, Cullen, and maybe Care would look at all forwards have a squeak maybe of winning this or getting to the final of the Shield. And it would really maybe add something to the end of the TSDL season. But I don't think, Peakville or St. Michael's when I look at the Shields with any real, credit.
Fair enough. I want to talk about Wilderness Rovers. Did they miss a chance to put a bit of clear blue water at the top of Division 1?
Oh, they did. Look, what is it about the first division? And I actually feel for them, because you're looking at it on paper and Ballingarry are at the bottom of the division. Wilderness have a chance to seal the league title at home. They've put in unbelievable work in the facilities, everything they've done over the year, and you're going, you know what, this is going to be a brilliant end to the season for them. Like people like Eric Kane have done Trojan work. And then the magic of the first division, they get beaten 4-3 by Ballingarry. And all of a sudden now, Tipperary Town, if they win both their games, they're going to win the league. It's out of your hands now in Willies. But that's the first division. It's so difficult.
It is. And Tipperary Town, I think they have a game in hand as well. So Tipperary Town aren't out of it yet either.
Yeah, Tipperary.
That's what you said. Galbally. Sorry. They have two games in hand. Yeah, sorry.
Willies.
Sorry, my maths.
Winning a draw will force a playoff, and 2 wins will give them the title.
Yeah. So Wilderness are finished for the year on 14 games, 26 points.
Yeah.
One ahead of Galbally. and then Tipperary Town. Extraordinary end to what was a tremendous league, and is a tremendous league, and one that will have Clonmel Town in it next year. And it is quite extraordinary. I have very little time left, Barry, but before I let you go, just your opinion: will Tottenham go down?
I think they will, Ronan. I just don't think they have the players that are conditioned to a relegation fight, the Colin Moanis and so on. They haven't been there before. I don't think they have the profile that are going to scrap and fight and get teams turned and play that type of football. And I'm not sure that's De Zerbi's type of football either. I think they're in a really precarious position now. I do think they'll go down.
Okay, you can talk about managerial appointments, but they didn't go for a relegation specialist. Is that what they needed?
100%. That's basically 100%. They should have went for someone who just gets you out of trouble. Someone like Sean Dyche, play that type of football, get you over the line, and then look at something different maybe going forward. But I don't think they're going to scrap and fight and battle, unfortunately.
Was there an overemphasis on building a magnificent stadium at the cost of not investing in players? It must be that.
Absolutely. And Daniel Levy's going to shoulder a lot of the blame, isn't he? Because he put the focus on having this incredible stadium and maybe didn't invest in the team. 12 months on from winning the European trophy, it's an incredible fall.
It is. Barry, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a million, Ronan.
Not at all. Barry Ryan joining us there. That's all we've time for. Ian O'Connor produced tonight's show. We'll be back to you next Monday night when we'll be reflecting on the opening round of the Munster Championship. Till then, good night and good luck.